It's time for TNT. I'm Leo Laporte filling in for Mike Elgin, who has the week off. Coming up, we'll take a look at Apple Pay. It's out today. We also will talk about an attack on Apple from China and the beginning of IPTV. TNT is next.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by CashFly at CACHEFLY.com. This is Tech News Today for Monday, October 20th, 2014. This episode brought to you by Citrix ShareFile. Enhance your workflows and files of almost any size easily and securely with Citrix ShareFile. Try ShareFile today for a 30-day free trial. Go to sharefile.com. Click the microphone and enter TNT. And by Gazelle, the fast and simple way to sell your used gadgets. Find out what your used iPhone, iPad, or other Apple product is worth at Gazelle.com. Tech News Today, the show where we talk about the tech news with the journalists who report it. I am Leo Laporte. Welcome. Filling in for Mike Elgin, who has the week off.
Deservedly.
And you? Do I have to point at you, Jason?
Sure, you can point at me. Hey, I'm over here. I'm Jason Howell. Look, Mike has worked tirelessly pretty much every single episode of this year.
This is his first vacation.
This is his first vacation. It's kind of crazy that it's taken this long for him to, step away.
Yeah.
You know what? You're going to do great, Leo.
That's Jason Howell, ladies and gentlemen. Lindsey Turrentine also joins us today. She's the editor-in-chief for CNET Reviews. And we're going to give Lindsey, because she's done this before, the top story of the day. And by the way, while you're doing that story, Lindsey, I will be furiously tapping update on my iPhone 6.
Leo is updating his iPhone because
it's here.
iOS 8.1 is out. It's out.
Just came out as we started.
That's right.
Yeah.
Just as the show started, almost as if it were for the show.
Yes.
In any case, Apple is making its opening salvo in the war to own banking on your phone. Apple Pay launches today, along with Apple's resurrection of the camera roll and the introduction of iCloud Photo. But probably most importantly, it brings a partnership with more than 500 financial institutions that have signed up to partner with Apple, according to the Wall Street Journal. Credit card networks Visa, MasterCard, and American Express have joined up too. And here to talk about this is senior writer, Apple reporter Shara Tibken for CNET. Hi, Shara.
Hey, guys.
How are you doing?
Welcome.
Great.
So Google Wallet, PayPal, they've had mobile payment system out for a while. This is not entirely new. Does Apple stand a better chance of making this happen for most Americans?
Well, the big thing that Apple brings to this is it's not trying to replace the banks and it's not trying to cut them out of the situation. It's really kind of just working as this intermediary that provides this sort of system that allows you to use your traditional banking system in a slightly different way. So, people generally think that they have a pretty good chance, but success isn't guaranteed overnight.
I'm doing the update right now, Shara, and I'm doing it with trepidation because 801 killed people's LTE and Touch ID. 802 seems to be okay. Should I be worried? Should people hold off on 8.1?
Well, hopefully they would have figured things out for this one. I don't really think
we can all
I don't
hope.
think they could use another big software issue this time around. 8.0.2 fixed all the problems from 8.0.1, which basically bricked people's phones. So, I assume that this one has been thoroughly tested, every possibility. But, lots of people do advise waiting a little bit before downloading these just to see what sort of issues pop up. And with the last time, it was it was within the first hour you knew there were problems.
Adoption has been slow on iOS 8 because of that, but also I think because it takes a lot of memory.
Yeah, it takes a lot of memory. I think people have also started to realize that if you have an older phone, upgrading to the newer operating system often can slow down your phone as opposed to really speeding it up. iOS 8 was designed for the newest phones. So, it's designed to work best on the most advanced chips, the most advanced hardware that they have in these new devices. So, it isn't necessarily designed for the iPhone 5. So there can always be problems if you're putting this on an older device.
So let me ask you, Shara, are banks rushing to sign up to partner with Apple on this? Are they excited about it? And what's their motivation if they are?
Yeah, I mean, they have, they've signed up, I think, 500 banks They've talked about hundreds of banks that they've signed up just since making the announcement. So it seems like they have a ton of people on board. The major credit card companies in the U.S. are also on board with this. I've talked with Visa, and one thing that they've said is that this is safer than a regular credit card. And, they're still part of the process here. They're guaranteeing that this is going to be safe and that your money is going to go where it needs to go. There's not really a lot of risk for people to use this. And, it's just another way to get people to spend more money.
The real question is, once I have 8.1 installed, which I should have in a minute or two,
or 20,
or 20, whatever, can I leave? Can I leave the show today and use this? I mean, where can I run out the door and where can I go? Is Walgreens said they were going to launch on Saturday? Did they?
Yeah. I'm not sure. I don't think that they could have launched because the software wasn't live yet.
Right.
So, I was in Whole Foods yesterday here in San Francisco, and they had, signs up saying, "Oh, we now offer Apple Pay." And I was like, how does that work? Because you can't actually have it on your phone yet. But, I think that they're just kind of in anticipation for today when people can upgrade their phones, that you should be able to go into these stores and use it. And it's seen that, we're going to be testing this out, going and shopping and such, and seeing how it works.
A lot of places like Walgreens already had touch to pay. So it's just a question of, but they will need special hardware or...
the way it works, if you want to do this in a store, you have to have either the iPhone 6 or the 6 Plus. Those are the only two devices that the in-store where you don't actually have to tap it. You just hold it close to the terminal. That's the only way that works. But Apple Pay has another feature that I think actually more people are going to use and are going to find more useful, and that's the in-app purchase feature. So we've had this a long time with iTunes. So when you want to buy a song, you just put your finger on the fingerprints, the Touch ID sensor, and you buy it. You'll be able to do this with apps like Target and some of the other retailers, where you add things to your shopping cart and you choose an Apple Pay button, put your finger on the Touch ID sensor, and it checks you out. And you can have it shipped to your default settings, to your default address, your default credit card, everything. So basically, it just makes it a lot easier to make purchases in these apps, as opposed to having to try to enter all of your credit card and checkout information on the tiny touch screen.
Is there any chance in the world of this working with Amazon, or is this super threatening to Amazon? I mean, all I can think of is I always shop on Amazon on my phone because it's the easiest and everything's all set up. But this sounds like maybe I could do some other shopping.
Yeah, I think these two companies are frenemies, sort of, or, don't really have any, they actually don't really interact at all. We'll have to see if if Amazon ends up building this capability into their app. But, this is not really necessarily in their best interest because they already have, very easy checkout, and you just click, you don't have to enter things again. It's very fast. I don't really think that necessarily for them, there's a huge benefit in adding Apple Pay capabilities, but we'll just have to see.
We don't know yet how much free space you have to have on your iPhone to do this update, but I have to note that it downloaded extremely quickly. It's not a 4 gigabyte update.
Yeah, no, it's not like a major, iOS 8 was a major complete operating system. This is more just kind of a step update that's adding, probably fixing some bugs, adding camera roll, adding some of these other features.
Camera roll is a funny story because they didn't really kill the camera roll functionality. They just changed the name, right?
Well, Apple always tries different things. Photos are definitely something people do a lot with their phones. So, if something gets changed, you automatically, the knee-jerk reaction is what happened to my photos. But they're also going to have like iCloud photo. I think the beta version of that is coming out with this version of the operating system. So you'll be able to have all of your photos together everywhere. But, that counts against your iCloud storage that you have to pay for after 5 gigs.
I'm looking at the list of changes and fixes on Apple's website. It's quite a long list. But our chat room is reporting that the update for them is somewhere between 100 and 200 megabytes. It's not a giant update. And on my phone, when I started, right as we started the show, The bar is about 3/4 of the way across. It says preparing update. I imagine that's a precursor to installing update.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I mean, whenever these come out, it seems like it always takes a long time to download them because everybody's trying to do it at the same time.
You Apple fans, you just have to have the latest stuff. HealthKit apps now can access data in the background, AirDrop support for Passbook passes, it's things like that. Things, not features they needed, plus bug fixes, accessibility improvements as well. And it says it fixes an issue that was preventing the use of OS X caching server for iOS updates. So if you know what that means, then you're probably happy about that. Hey, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thanks for joining us. Shara Tibken, senior writer for CNET, on Twitter at Shara, Tibken. Thank you, Shara.
Thanks.
Our second story today is breaking as we speak. IBM has released, or is about to release, its third quarter results. Shares in early trading are down over 7% after Big Blue missed analysts' estimates and announced it's not going to make its forecast for next year's profits. Revenue in the third quarter was down 4%. Earnings per share a little more than $3, far below analysts' expectations. Part of the drop due to a $4.7 billion pre-tax charge resulting from losses in the chip business. And this is a little odd. IBM says it's going to pay Santa Clara-based Global Foundries to take over the chip business. They're paying Global Foundries $1.5 billion to take over IBM's chip division. IBM CFO Martin Schrader blamed weaker than expected software revenue challenges in the service business for the disappointing quarter. I think it's the end of hardware, the end of the line for hardware for IBM. You remember they sold the PC business 10 years ago to Lenovo, the server business to Lenovo earlier, I think this year.
Didn't they sell their drive division to Toshiba?
Yeah, or Hitachi, somebody, yeah.
Hitachi. Yeah, I think
so
you're right.
that's it for hardware. IBM is now a services and cloud company. Well, it remains to be seen whether they can make a business there. That's a big shift.
What's so strange about this is that the report says we're getting rid of chips, and it was a really bad quarter for software. So to me, that seems...
what's left?
Yeah, where are we going here?
Big Blue has a lot of patents. They're a big company. They're not disappearing yet, but times are tough, a little bit tough for them. We're going to take a break and come back with a story of an attack on Apple from China. But first, a word from our friends at Citrix ShareFile. We're big fans of ShareFile. I use ShareFile every week to send audio clips to the radio stations, both ads and bumpers, the kind of thing I do. Hi, this is Leo Laporte. Whenever I'm in Des Moines, I listen to KXZZ Radio 650. That stuff doesn't just appear on the radio stations. I have to send it to them. And I have tried every method. Of course, I started with email attachments, but you know what I say, never send email attachments. It seems to be every business email has them, PowerPoint presentations, contracts, spreadsheets, but that's not secure. It's not safe. Email attachments are a vector for viruses, so we always tell people neither send nor open email attachments. That's going to kind of get in your way. Plus, let's not forget, these files are so big now. Bounce back is a huge issue. Many email boxes can't handle more than 10 megabytes. You're sending gigabytes. That's why I use ShareFile. It solved my problem. I send files to the radio station. It's not really an email attachment. It looks like it if you're using Outlook. It's really sending them an encrypted link. And you can control who can open it, how long they can open it, how many copies they can download. You'll get an email alert when files are open and reviewed. And I use ShareFile to synchronize on my desktop. That's both Mac and Windows. So that folder, when I save the folder, the audio to the folder is automatically synchronized. I have access to it for my smartphone, my tablet, my computer, anywhere. It really is a great service. I want you to try it right now for free for 30 days. Visit sharefile.com. All I ask, though, is that, and this is a little weird, at the top of the homepage, and you have to go right to the front page. Not there. Yeah, there. It says podcast listeners. See that? The fine print? That's what you need to click. Enter the offer code TNT, and you've got 30 days free. Don't forget to tell them what business you're in, because they are HIPAA compliant with financial regulations in the financial services business, other government regulations. That's sharefile.com. Make sure you click the microphone and enter TNT. Well, today, China decided to celebrate the iPhone launch in China with a little attack against Apple and Microsoft. Lindsey has the story.
Okay, so web censorship watchdog grapefire.org reports that the Chinese government is intercepting connections to Apple's iCloud from China, pointing users instead to a site that appears to be spoofing iCloud login page. So the attack seems to be timed to coincide with the launch of iPhone 6 sales in China. And here to tell us more about the story is Russell Brandom of The Verge. Hi, Russell. How are you?
Hi, great to be here.
Welcome.
Welcome. So can you tell us a little bit more about who greatfire.org is and how reliable this information is?
Yeah, so they have been, they're one of the preeminent groups, I think, looking at web censorship in China. Great Fire is a play on the Great Firewall, which is the Chinese apparatus for web surveillance and censorship. Yeah, so they've been at the front of a lot of different stories. There was, for a while, an issue with Skype. There was a sort of Chinese knockoff Tom Skype that was cooperating with Skype, and you weren't sort of sure which one you were using. And they really took the lead on that, and they've taken a lead on a lot of the which terms are censored and sort of what the alerts are. So I think they're a very reliable source for this. And as I was sort of mentioning this before, they backed up the report with a lot of hard evidence. So they've got trace routes. You can sort of follow the traffic from place to place and see exactly where it was redirected. So if you're, technically capable on these things, you don't have to take their word for it. You can really see it happening.
Russell, you characterize this as a man-in-the-middle attack. What exactly is happening?
Yeah, so I mean, the man-in-the-middle attack, literally, if you're in Shanghai and iCloud is, wherever it's being hosted, the firewall is in the middle. So the man in the middle is telling you he's sending you to iCloud, but really he's sending you somewhere else. And the question is, how can you tell whether it's the real iCloud or whether it's not the real iCloud? Now, there is a way to do this. HTTPS, those protections, which is a little green lock you see to the left of your URL bar, and iCloud uses that. And that's why if you were using Chrome or Firefox, even in Shanghai trying to get to iCloud, you saw a warning that said, hey, wait a minute, this isn't iCloud, this is some other thing. But the problem is, because it's the Chinese government, they've encouraged, I would say, a lot of Chinese-made browsers, particularly Qihoo, which is the most popular browser in China, to not display those warnings. So if you were using Qihoo, and that's millions of people who were approaching iCloud that way, you didn't see a warning and you got routed straight to this fake iCloud site.
So is using Firefox or Chrome sort of the answer for anybody who generally wants to avoid these types of attacks, whether it's on Microsoft or Apple or anyone else? Is that a best practice for anyone in China?
Absolutely. I would say, Chrome and Firefox are definitely at the forefront of security on this. I would say also, iCloud does use HTTPS because they're, sending you files and there's a lot of sensitive data. There's a big movement afoot to get more sites to use HTTPS, particularly journalistic outlets and sort of anyone who is potentially, sites are less secure if they're using HTTP. And so one of the things we saw recently is Google said that they would give a search ranking boost, a pretty small one, but still, to any site using HTTPS. So if I'm looking for something and there's an HTTPS site that's going to give it to me, I should probably get it from there.
So greatfire.org is reporting that this is also happening to Microsoft. The live login page is also being hijacked. In both cases, you'll get what looks like a genuine login page with warning or without a warning. You'll get a genuine login page. What happens to a Chinese user who then logs into iCloud through that page or logs into live.com through that page?
Yeah, so the man-in-the-middle attack means, once you do that, they can just send you on to iCloud or login.live. But because you weren't sending it directly to iCloud and there was a person in the middle, they now have your login and password. So if they want to make it seamless and say, okay, we're just, once you've done that, we'll log you into iCloud and sort of send you along on your way, they can do that, which is part of what makes the attack so troubling. And you would never know that, suddenly now whoever was behind this has, the login. They can log into your account anytime they want.
So how is Apple responding to this, or are they responding to it? Are they just kind of letting everything settle out on its own?
Well, I think they're being quiet so far. We haven't had an official statement that I have seen. I think it's very politically delicate for them. We remember sort of Google's complicated relationship with China before, where you want to be in this market both because, it's sort of a large and lucrative marketplace for Apple. They're selling 20 million units of the iPhone 6 and 6 Plus at last count. I actually think we're getting the official figures later today, so that'll be a good thing to watch for. But also, Apple has stepped up their encryption efforts. And it is important, especially for users in China, to have access to phones with encryption that hasn't been, circumvented by the Chinese government, possibly. So I think in many cases, certainly, and I think Google felt this also, you want to kind of give the people their access to your products because you believe in what you're doing, but that also means playing ball with the Chinese government and not, when something like this happens, it's very hard for a company like that to come out and say, how dare you? This is completely unacceptable. Like, you're targeting our users. This is awful. I think Apple's very cautious about making that announcement and sort of antagonizing the Chinese government.
So the presumption is that basically this is the Chinese government using the Great Firewall to get people's logins to iCloud for use later to keep an eye on what they're up to.
Yeah, essentially. I mean, it would be very difficult for anyone other than the Chinese government to do this. We don't know who within, like, if there was, maybe it's some rogue faction, but whoever it is, they have very extensive access to the Chinese telecom infrastructure. So it's hard to imagine it's anyone other than the government. Now, we don't know why they're doing it. It's sort of an indiscriminate attack. So maybe it's just they're going to keep these things on file for later. Maybe there's someone specifically they're looking for. We really don't know a lot about the why. Mostly what we know is the how.
Right. Very interesting. Thank you, Russell. Russell Brandom, he's a reporter for The Verge. You'll follow him on Twitter at Russell Brandom with an M. And we appreciate your help.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Take care, Russell.
Have a good one.
An update on a story we reported last week that the anonymous messaging app Whisper might not be so anonymous. The Guardian accused Whisper of tracking its users, even those who had opted out of geolocation, and sharing that information with, among others, the U.S. Department of Defense. Whisper initially denied the story, calling it, quote, a pack of vicious lies, end quote. But we should note the company did amend its terms of service shortly after the news broke to explicitly permit geolocation of all users. Well, Saturday, Whisper founder and CEO Michael Hayward broke his silence with a post on Medium. In it, he said he welcomed the discussion and, quote, we realize we're not infallible, end quote. He admitted that Whisper does collect IP addresses, but said we delete them after 7 days. He also said we do not actively track users. The Whisper chief executive also said the information shared with the Department of Defense was shared with their suicide prevention office. That's part of Whisper's efforts to prevent suicide. He said 40,000 Whisper users have already been referred to the National Suicide Prevention Hotline to date. Finally, he noted that the recent changes to Whisper's terms of service were finalized in July, long before the Guardian story, and were part of an overall rewrite to make the policies easier to read. The Guardian's disclosures were based on a visit to Whisper's offices, email conversations with its executives, and prompted privacy experts to call for a federal inquiry into the company. Several media outlets, including BuzzFeed and Fusion, have suspended their prospective partnerships with the app in the wake of the Guardian's allegations. We're going to have more in just a bit, but first, let's say hello to our friends at Gazelle. Gazelle is the place to go if you've got an old iPhone or an old iPad and your mouth is watering for the new iPad Air 3 or perhaps an iPhone 6. Don't let those gadgets gather dust in a drawer. That's cash in your pocket you're looking at. Visit Gazelle.com and get a quote. Even a quote isn't a commitment from you, just a commitment from Gazelle. That quote is a price they will pay anytime in the next 30 days. You can wait, you can ponder, you can consider, you can wait till your phone comes. Look at that. $490 for an iPhone 6 Plus. What, are you selling your iPhone 6 already? Of course you are, Jason.
Oh, yeah, no, I had this thing totally for like a couple of days, and I was like, wait a minute, this is an Android?
But do get that quote now because the price is not going up, I guarantee you, on anything. Lock in the price for 30 days. Once you decide to, and by the way, just get all the gadgets together and do it all. Once you decide to pull the trigger, you'll get paid in cash, a check, or a PayPal credit, or if you want a 5% bump, that $260 for a 5S is pretty good too. Look at that. If you want a 5% bump, you can also get an Amazon gift card. That's what I always do because I buy a lot of stuff on Amazon. But don't wait. Your gadgets are losing value the longer you wait. Offers are good for 30 days. There's no risk. Gives you time to get the device, transfer the data, or set up your new device. If you forget to wipe the data, or if it's a broken iPhone or iPad and you couldn't remove the data, don't worry. They'll do that for you. So far, Gazelle's paid nearly $170 million to over 1 million customers. Free shipping, fast processing, cash in your pocket. What is your iPhone work? Take a minute and go to gazelle.com to find out. We continue on now with a story that's a little near and dear to my heart. I admit I have a vested interest. Last week we got news that CBS, Univision, and HBO all were planning to join the NBA, among others, to cut the cord and to start streaming programs directly to customers without help from the cable company. This unbundling may be the beginning of a shift to new distribution models for content creators. Might be bad news for traditional cable networks. Janko Roetggers joins us right now. He covers media for GigaOM. His story yesterday, Never Say Never, Why TV Networks Are Suddenly Ready to Unbundle. Janko, thanks for joining us on TNT.
Sure. Hi, guys.
What happened? Why now? It seems like this is something HBO, for an example, has been very reluctant to get rid of the cable companies. They're reliant on them, aren't they?
HBO is interesting because they always said, oh, we're not really ready to do that. We might make that sometime in the future if it makes sense for us economically, but it really doesn't make sense for it. That was their party line for the longest time. And then last week they said, oh, it's starting to make sense now, so we're going to do it next year. And it was kind of interesting. Last week, it was really a flurry of announcements in this space because CBS that came out the next day and said, oh, we're actually doing it right now. And then Univision came and said, we're going to do that too. So it was really something that people had for a long time said would never happen or wouldn't happen anytime soon, suddenly started to like unroll in a really fast pace there. And it's interesting. I think a lot of this has to do with just the way consumers are watching TV nowadays. It has shifted a lot, and people have argued a long time about cord cutting, and if you look at the statistics and the numbers at Comcast and those guys give you, a lot of folks still subscribe to cable. Some people cut the cord. I don't know if you, Leo, if you still have cable or not, but a lot of folks, I think that listen to this show, probably going to cut the cord or have cut the cord at some point. But
yeah, we saw ComScore's report that particular millennials, the younger folks, I think it was 24% of millennials have cut the cord. 14% never connected the cord. There's cord cutters and there's cord nevers, and there's a significant portion of them just never even got cable in the first place. How do cable companies react to this? This has to scare them.
I think they're starting to react to it too, and we've seen some of that over the last couple of months when Comcast came out and a couple of other ones as well and said, you know, if you don't want to pay that much for cable, we can give you this really cheap deal. It's mostly basically internet and then just a little bit of cable thrown in and a little bit of HBO on the top, and you're just going to pay $50 or $45 for 12 months, and then we're going to jack up the rates after. So they're starting to experiment a little bit and think in the long run, all those guys are going to also build their own smaller bundles and online distribution services. And we have seen announcements from Dish, obviously. Dish wants to do something in this space. DirecTV wants to do something more targeted, where they're going to do a service just for a Spanish-speaking audience. So everybody's experimenting, and a lot of this stuff has happened kind of in secret in the labs, but now we're starting to finally see it. And I think the big force that drives everybody to do this is really Netflix. Because even if people haven't cut the cord, people are watching a whole lot of Netflix. We just had Netflix announce our earnings last week as well. They didn't go so well because Netflix kind of missed the mark, but there's still, I think the current number is 36 million, 37 million, something like that. I actually have to check here really quick on my cheat sheet. 37 million people subscribe in the US to Netflix nowadays, and each and every of these subscribers on average, they watch 90 minutes of Netflix every single day. That must scare networks whole lot, because suddenly it's not this world anymore where online video is a small thing that's not really happening and TV is this big thing that's happening 5 hours a day, but people are really starting to shift how they watch TV.
I'm trying not to grin too broadly here, Lindsey, but
this is interesting to me. I work for CBS Interactive. I've got to say that out loud. But I want to know, do you think, how much money is this going to end up saving consumers in the long run, having this degree of choice?
I think it depends really on the consumer. People who watch a lot of expensive TV, and that is sports, for example, they may not save actually that much. And some people may decide that they're going to stay with the big bundle because it's cheaper. But if you are very focused in your interests, if you're really fan of like one HBO show per season and then maybe one show on AMC, or maybe a broadcast show on CBS, for example, you could stitch together a personal offering that may be a whole lot cheaper than that $100 cable bundle in the end.
I kind of feel like the cable companies will manipulate their prices in such a way, increase the cost of internet access, because many of us, really, that's how we get our internet access. We can't cut the cord completely. Increase the price of internet access, balance it out so that they end up making the same amount of money either way.
I mean, that is interesting that you say that, because already the margins on internet are a whole lot better for cable companies. Because we shouldn't forget, every time they deliver you the TV service, they charge a whole lot of money, but they also get charged a lot from the TV networks. So that's the other part of this whole equation, that there's been this ongoing conflicts between broadcasters and cable networks on the one side, and then the pay TV service on the other side. And the broadcasters always say, we want to have more per network, and the cable companies then at some point give in and pass that price down to you, which makes cable more expensive every year. So in the end, actually, for a lot of those cable companies, it may be better if people focus more on the broadband part and are maybe willing to upgrade their broadband connection, because now 3 people are watching TV, streaming TV at the same time in the household, and so they need something faster. So it might be a good deal for them as well.
They may not fight this tooth and nail. Actually, ESPN, I think, is the most... People may not know this, but the cable companies pay ESPN $6 per subscriber. So it's a month. So it's a very expensive channel. That's an ABC channel, I might add. That's a very expensive channel for the cable companies to carry. So what you're saying is, in fact, ESPN might be reluctant to do this, because if they go directly to the consumers, they're going to have to charge at least that much, probably 2 or 3 times that much. And the cable companies now don't have to pay that anymore. So in the end, it may all work out.
I think ESPN is in an interesting position there as well, because it's the most expensive channel. It's not the most watched channel, so they just have very valuable programming. People who care about this are willing to pay a lot, and right now they're passing that out to everybody. And half of the households don't watch ESPN at all. Half of them watch it like once a month or something like that, at least. Some people, it may make sense to keep that bundle and keep it part of your pay TV subscription. But ESPN isn't waiting either. They announced earlier this month with the NBA that they're working on some online service where you may be able to watch some of those games outside of the pay gates. And I think for ESPN, it's also then coming down to finding more granular audiences. Some people are only interested in some college sports, right? And not into everything. People who are watching football that not necessarily always watch baseball as well. So there may be a future where maybe you don't have to pay those $30 that hypothetically people always throw in the room and say, oh, if it was unbundled, ESPN would be $30. Well, yes, if you wanted to watch all of it, but nobody watches all of it. So by even unbundling within ESPN, they may be able to keep their price structure intact and sell you just a college football subscription for cheaper, or just something else that you're interested in and that you're willing to pay for significant money, but maybe $10 a month.
Yeah, I think that's accurate. I think the next step, the first step is to have a channel unbundled, but what consumers really want, they just want to buy a show or a sport. They don't want to buy all of HBO, just Game of Thrones. So ultimately, that's what we're going to be pushing for, is
I think there's both. Because to be fair, Netflix is a pretty good deal. And if I had the choice between paying for just House of Cards, like $3 an episode, or just buying Netflix every month, I think Netflix is the better deal. Some bundles make sense. Some other bundles may not be that effective. And now that everything is on the table and things are starting to move very quickly, I think we're going to see a whole bunch of different options and combinations emerge.
It's exciting.
Do you think that this is just really interesting? Do you think that social media has led to better discoverability and ultimately the ability to unbundle things or sell them a la carte, because people can find out about shows without having to sit there and browse, which is, 10 years ago, we found out about TV shows by just watching
TV Guide. Remember the TV Guide?
Nobody uses TV Guide anymore, but social media plays some role. I think when it comes to live TV, that's what people are still banking on. So if something is going on in real time, live events, Twitter is definitely a big driver. Other than that, I mean, traditional word of mouth works as well. I think there's some buzz obviously behind big shows on social media, but also just like talking to folks regular, like at work or something. I think, and it's interesting to see how social media is almost I would say it's changing in a way, right? How people interact on social media around shows. Now that everyone watches at their own schedule, you see far fewer spoilers anymore. Like, I haven't watched the most recent Walking Dead, and please don't tell me what happened.
People are very cautious, aren't they, about tweeting that stuff?
Yeah. I'm going to unplug my headphones here in a second. But nobody has said anything on Twitter either about it yet. Right. So people are using this, sure, to discover some of this stuff, but people are also very considerate, which I appreciate as a TV fan.
IPTV is on its way. It's good news for us. Janko, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Janko Roetggers is a senior writer for GigaOM. You can follow him on Twitter at JANK0, right?
That's right.
Thank you,
made
Janko.
it complicated.
Take care. It's just leet, that's all. In other news, Spotify, oh, by the way, more importantly, it's done. I've got iOS 8.1. So it didn't take long, half an hour. Yeah, I'm so excited. I'm going to go buy something. In other news.
I'm going to.
Would you? Did you install it while we were talking?
No, I'm waiting until after the show because I want to be able to give it my undivided attention.
Thank you.
And then I'm going to go buy something.
I consider myself spanked. Spotify has announced it's unveiling a new family plan today. Spotify Family will allow you to share your premium account with up to 4 more users, but it's not going to be cheap. Pricing starts at $15 a month for 2 users, $20 for 3, $25 for 4. If you want 5 users on your Spotify account, $30. It's about $5 a user per month. The new plans will be available globally in the coming weeks. Both RDO and Beats, if you use AT&T, have had family plans, but I don't think either is quite as inexpensive. And soon, your kids will be able to learn how to code from Doctor Who, if you're in the UK, that is. The BBC is launching a Doctor Who-themed web game. It's called The Doctor and the Dalek. It'll feature puzzles designed to help children understand the fundamentals of computer programming, including repetition and loops. Peter Capaldi, the current Doctor Who, will voice the game. It'll launch Wednesday on the BBC's CBBC website. Sorry, world, it's UK only. Our British viewers know that the BBC has a long history of supporting computer technology. The BBC Micro, more than 20 years ago, Raspberry Pi, and the like. Our fan of the day, our TNT fan of the day, Jeff Leewag, he said, okay, I just listened on my Get Ready for This good old Zune HD in the car.
But look at that. I love that.
On the steering wheel.
Propped up on the steering wheel.
That can't be safe.
Well, thankfully, he's not watching the video podcast through it, A. And B, I hope there's a mount behind it so it doesn't fly off when you slam the brakes.
Yeah, that is the ultimate dashboard technology there.
Finally, a use for the Zune HD. You can also search the hashtag #HowIWatchTNT to see them all for yourself. And please post. We'd love to see how you watch TNT. That's it for Tech News Today. So great to have you on, Lindsey Turrentine. You made it easy for me to fill in. You can follow Lindsey at CNET, where she is senior editor of reviews. What's your Twitter handle? Do you talk about that, or is it a secret?
It's at L Turrentine.
Excellent.
First initial, last name.
Excellent. And I like the Rothko behind you there. That's very nice.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's next to the kid painting. They're about equivalent.
Which is which? I'm not. Yeah.
Yeah. Can you tell?
Yeah. Thank you, Lindsey. You can subscribe to our show on Stitcher, on iTunes, on YouTube, on Feedly, on Yahoo, on RSS. Just make sure you get it. twit.tv/TNT. Follow us on Twitter, Tech News Today TV. I'm Leo Laporte. Mike will be back next week. I'll be back tomorrow. Thanks for joining us. Thanks, Jason Howell. We'll see you next time on TNT.